George Percy, one of the English settlers and future president of the council, wrote, "The 6th and 20th day of April, about 4 o'clock in the morning, we descried the land of Virginia. The same day we entered into the bay of the Chesapeake directly, without any let or hindrance. There we landed and discovered a little way, but we could find nothing worth the speaking of but fair meadows and goodly tall trees, with such fresh waters running through the woods as I was almost ravished at the first sight thereof." The sighting of land was obviously important for the future settlement of Jamestown, but what did it mean to the crew aboard the ships and those already living there? The English had been crossing the Atlantic for about 100 years at this point. They definitely knew what they were doing, and they would probably expect that journey to take anywhere between 2 and 6 months. The average during this time period ends up being about 3 months to get from England to Virginia. However, this first journey took 144 days. That is just a week shy of 5 months. Now, part of the reason it took so long is, according to John Smith, by unprosperous winds, they were kept 6 weeks within sight of England. Both John Smith and George Percy mentioned being anchored in the Downs for part of that time in the English Channel. Also, they make 7 stops along the way, and then they spend about 3 weeks exploring once they get here. The Virginia Company of London chose Captain Christopher Newport to lead this first expedition to Virginia. He had spent much of his career in the New World as a privateer attacking Spanish ships, and this made him perfectly suited for this job. John Smith said that Christopher Newport was a mariner well practiced for the western parts of America. George Percy mentions that Christopher Newport's skills as a captain get them through great storms while they're in the English Channel. Another reason it probably took them so long to get here to Virginia is John Smith and George Percy both mentioned a significant storm striking them days before they finally spy Virginia. They both say that the ships had to lie at whole. That means to strike their sails, furl them, and just basically float at the mercy of the storm. George Percy described this as a vehement tempest. So you can imagine the sailors' relief at finally spying land after many, many months at sea. On that day, April 26th, when the ships arrived in Virginia, the colonists disembarked and planted a cross and named that spot Cape Henry in the name of the crown.
George Percy continued with his account of April 26, saying, "At night when we were going aboard, there came savages creeping upon all fours, from the hills like bears with bows in their mouths, who charged us very desperately in the faces, hurt Captain Gabriel Archer in both his hands, and a sailor in 2 places of the body, very dangerous. After they had spent their arrows and felt the sharpness of our shot, they retired into the woods with a great noise, and so left us." So when the English arrive here, they're going to call this place Cape Henry. But for the tribes that are already living here, this is going to be called Tsenacommacah, which means the land. The Chesapeake are inhabiting the area where directly Cape Henry is, but you're also going to see the tribes of the Tsenacommacah and further inland, towns that are going to belong to the Nansemond. This place is already very densely populated, and there's society that's already taken place here and has been here for thousands of years. When these ships arrive, the waterways here will be a means to an end. But for the Powhatan, the bay and rivers are supplying them with aspects of daily life. Food from fishing for both fin and shellfish, tools from the shells for scrapers and timber for pottery, jewelry like in my necklaces, and transportation. Another important aspect of these waterways is it's bringing all of these tribes together. Seeing these English ships on their waterways, they're now going to have to decide whether they want to be connected with these Englishmen or not. One thing to keep in mind is this isn't going to be first contact for these tribes. Many of these tribes have already dealt with European contact, and while some of these interactions may have been good, some of them have been very unpleasant. A good example of this is the Powhatan boy named Don Louis. Obviously, he would not have had this name originally, but he was taken and kidnapped, sold as a slave, and ended up working for a Spanish family. By using his influence with this family, he got them to start a Jesuit mission attempt and bring them back to this area. By the time he would arrive back in the area, he would jump ship and return to his people. This is just one example of the interactions that the tribes here are going to be dealing with when thinking about dealing with Europeans. So seeing these ships arrive here on April 26th is going to mean something very different for the tribes here than what it's going to mean for the English. While some may still want to obviously trade for those English goods that would make life easier and be more convenient, others are still going to be very apprehensive about dealing with these English and what it could possibly mean for them and their people. In the end, nobody could have imagined the overwhelming impact these 3 ships would have on the people here and all of those to come.